Oh, hello there. Yes, well, just building up to another heat wave, aren't we? Yes. Yes. Used to be hot occasionally in the past, wasn't it? Yeah, 1976. Oh, wasn't it hot? 1976, wasn't it hot? The ladybirds, all that stuff, right? Yeah, but it was just like after 1976, you had to wait another 25 years before it was hot again. Now we only have to wait about 25 days before it's hot again. Because, well, you can argue about the science of it. Well, you can argue tosh about the science of it if you fancy. But the lived experience is it's getting hotter, isn't it? Yes. That's the real experience of real people in their lives, not what Toby Young wants you to think. And there is that serious disconnect between people in the media and the rest of us. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And the worse it gets, I think, just the crosser they're going to get about it. Sometimes it's just that they are lying, because very often these people are simply paid. It's their job to lie. You think about Toby Young and the various fossil fuel lobbies, one way or another, that have input into him and his mates. But with the rest of them, sometimes I genuinely think that they honestly don't get how the world works. Yeah. Think about, well, okay, here's Exhibit A, naturally, Connor Tomlinson, yeah? I would not vote for a Muslim politician. Okay, mate, yes, because you're a racist. Okay, just as I would not vote for a communist politician. Okay, then, yeah, mate, you're, a crypto-fascist. Okay, I am not alone in this. Yeah, we know, mate. Because there are other people that are really similar to you. They don't really understand the way the world works, and they just don't like people, particularly women. Anyway, so why does Reform keep pushing Muslim candidates to the front of the queue in a party designed to represent the forgotten British majority? Right? Okay. Because you can't win elections on just a handful of crypto fascists, neo nationalists, or any other sort of choice phrase you want to use, Connor. I know that everybody that you meet every single time, reflects exactly your views about women, brown people, and economics, but actually that's just a very, very small handful of people. You can't win an election that way. And if you're trying to persuade people that you actually aren't that much of a racist party, because there are plenty of racist parties to choose from, you could go with Britain First if you just want an open and honest one, can't you? Yeah, you can go with that. But if they need to get people to vote for them, pretending not to be that much of a racist party, they're going to have to put forward some brown people. That's the way it works. And as Connor says under here, they aren't good candidates either. Well, of course they're not. They're brown, and you don't like brown people. There, that wasn't hard, was it? However, the rest of us maybe just don't have a problem with that, or indeed don't want to vote for a party that might be fronted by someone like Rupert Lowe. Maybe. Yeah, it will be intriguing if these people ever do get to put up any candidates, backed by Connor Tomlinson, to see just how far they got. But the last time, you may recall, when certain people in and around Connor Tomlinson's bunch of mates got to put up parties, that was the post-Farage UKIP party, they ended up with Carl Benjamin, and you can see how well that one went. Anyway, Exhibit B, Sarah Puccin MP, yes! That's singular and token. Don't know how many they've got today. MPs for Reform. Female, one for Reform. Yes, was a member of the Conservative Party. Couldn't really ever get anywhere there. Jumped ship. Now simply representing that kind of non-thinking aspect of the Conservative Party that we have put up with for 15 years, rejected wildly. Still, you never know, she might be able to hoodwink us into believing that isn't it an identical thing. So let's see what she's been going on about. On Friday, I met with the Cheshire Police and Crime Commissioner, Dan Price. I entered that meeting willing to set aside party politics, despite Mr. Price having publicly suggested that I and my constituents had fabricated reports of serious crime and antisocial behaviour linked to asylum seekers in HMOs. That's buildings with a lot of people in them, okay? Think multiple flats, HMOs, multiple occupancy. Anyway, I believe that building a professional relationship would best serve local residents. In hindsight, that was a naive aspiration on my part. We'll come back to that notion. Mr. Price has shown that his loyalty lies with the Labour Party and Keir Starmer, rather than with the impartial responsibilities that his role demands. In my view, a police and crime commissioner should not conduct themselves in a party political manner. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a vague memory about PCCs and why they were set up. They were set up under the Cameron government because, well, they wanted basically to have some form of political input and control over police forces because, they were having a few issues with it. And the idea was that it would be a slam dunk to get Conservative candidates in. Most people vote for PCCs along party political lines. So, by definition, they are party political appointees, aren't they? Now, you can argue about whether or not they do any good. My own personal feeling is I can't see the bleeding point. It just looks rather like yet more jobs for the boys in terms of the party apparatchiks, yeah? Hence the usual Labour Party ones that are there. Yeah, you see, I can select off the Labour Party as well. But I don't know if Sarah generally doesn't know that about them or if she's just pretending. I think it's actually the former rather than the latter. And I find it deeply ironic that someone like her can complain about people operating on party lines because everything that I've seen of her, her inability to deal with people that don't agree with her, is exactly along party lines. Anyway, let's just go on from there. In light of Mr. Price's conduct, bad man, I would not be engaging with him further. In my view, he represents an unnecessary and ongoing cost to the taxpayer. I know it's an irony alert, isn't it? And his behaviour raises legitimate questions about whether the role of the PCC is needed at all. Instead, we will seek a meeting with the Chief Constable, who we expect to be free from party political interference. She really doesn't understand the police either. Subject to appropriate assurances regarding confidentiality and protection, I will invite affected constituents to attend that meeting and share their experiences directly with the Chief Constable. Yeah. But of course, what Sarah is doing here is she's not really talking about crime, she's talking about brown people. Okay, and what she wants is to make the whole, well, actually, I'm a member of Reform and I do actually represent that cough cough forgotten majority of people. I'm sure as hell going to make an awful lot of nasty, nasty party political points around the colour of the skin of these people and what they fear. Still, maybe that'll please Connor, eh? Yeah, maybe it's everyone that thinks just like him. Yes. And anyway, the third on my list of, yeah, okay, if you like, is this bloke, okay? Montgomery something or other, I don't care. Anyway, he managed to get himself arrested at one of the Pride events at the weekend. Now, when people like this guy, okay, you notice the sign, turn up, rock up at a Pride event or Notting Hill Carnival or somewhere else, it's because they want basically to get themselves arrested, because that's the game, okay? It's your standard Andy No or any right-wing party you can think of. What they want is to be as provocative as possible and then complain bitterly when people are provoked. It's a public order issue. The police have a right and indeed a duty to maintain public order. Now, it might be that that involves them taking people off the streets that are being provocative, and you can argue the toss about the law around that, but the police are charged with public order, and sometimes, just sometimes, it means that they're not going to do whatever the local Tory or Reform MP demands that they do. Sometimes the law has to be treated in particular ways that work. Anyway, on the back of this bloke, obviously it's a trans issue, so we come to James S's, my favourite unqualified person who isn't qualified in any way, shape, or unqualified way to talk about qualified things. But he posted this up. Directed at the Met Police. I imagine they're really thrilled to receive this. I've been informed that this man has been arrested. Okay. As a psychotherapist, I can tell you that being trans is indeed a mental health condition. Police should not be arrested. People should not be arrested for stating facts. Except, of course, you're not a psychotherapist, James, are you? You're just a self-appointed busybody. I'm reminded of the very first job that I had, which was working in a library. I used to get people that basically used to spend their days writing letters, usually in green ink, to people in charge because they weren't very happy with the world. These days, people like James have made a career out of it, yeah? Absolute career out of it. But I'm sorry, I don't think that the police need to be listening to some bloke off the streets who calls himself a therapist. Now, again, as I've said many times in the past, I could be wrong that James isn't qualified, but it's very, very odd that somebody should have an entire website devoted to their therapies, etc., and not mention anything about their qualifications. One would have thought that they would be quite happy to, mention their qualifications or indeed their membership of a professional body in any way, shape, or form, but he doesn't. Still, I guess I'm just being bad or wrong about that, aren't I? What would I know what we're being, a professional? Anyway, last one. Well, perhaps my favourite. I don't know. Long-standing one. We get Isabel Oakeshott. Talk TV's international correspondent, except she never talks about international things. She simply talks about people in the UK that are bad. And here she is. Am I the only person not on benefits? She was saying to Mike Graham yesterday. Isabel Oakeshott on Labour's benefit clampdown. Now, number one, there she is. Right, okay, not in this country. So therefore, I don't know about when she's talking about my country, quite why she's getting cross about it, because she's not paying tax or anything else here. So realistically, it's got nothing to do with her. And then when you think about Isabel Oakeshott in terms of why exactly why she alleged that she went to a country to live under Sharia law, it was to avoid VAT payments on schools, or what we might think of as a benefit, yeah? Because after all, that was just a bung, wasn't it, to middle-class parents like her? It was a benefit that the government gave her. And when it was taken away, she decided to get huffy about it, notwithstanding writing a long article in the Daily Telegraph about how dreadful it all was, about the way that she'd been shunted out of the country. And now, long distance, working from home, she gets to tell me about my country. No, you don't, Isabel. That's not the way it works, is it? And it's so obviously disingenuous, and one might even say just telling porkies for her to be the international correspondent. Now, with all of these people, with a functioning media, they would simply be laughed at. They would just be laughed at. And yet, they get a platform. No matter what, they get a platform. They get interviewed as the victims of evil people like myself. How dare I know things? How dare I have a rationalized, thought out position on the world? Whereas they're the ones that should be listened to all the time. They represent everybody at all times about everything, even when they have no knowledge whatsoever about what they're talking. Yeah? Even when it's obvious they don't actually know people that live in the real world, actual people that are struggling to make ends meet. Isabel, like on benefits, or, coppers that have to be charged with public order. You know that one, James, don't you? Yes. Or indeed, the way that democracy and representation and party politics work, eh? Reform MPs. Anyway, I don't know. It's just desperately sad that we've now reached this point in this country. I can feel despair as well about where we are. And I blame all of the major political players who have simply capsized all of their interests into one big basket, which is marked for the rich. And that's where we are. And until we decide collectively to get rid of all of these people, they will continue to do it. And they will continue to make all of our lives miserable, because after all, they're the ones that are important. Do have a lovely, lovely Tuesday if you can do. Stay cool if you can. Certainly not hot under the collar like me, eh? Always so angry.